All right, Luis, for the past 2 years, you've done a very large body of work. You've looked up a ton of artists. You've done a whole bunch of different styles. And you've experimented in many different mediums. Today we're going to talk about that. And I'm going to allow you to start wherever you would like to start.
Well, how I have it set up around here is I put next to each other the things I did in junior year and then the things I did during senior year, such as the positioning of these two pieces, because it really shows the change in how I progressed in different techniques between junior year and senior year, and the change in not only technique but also in color and subject matter as well.
Okay. Can you start off with talking about what you had to do for this piece right here? Well, what's this one all about?
Well, the name of this piece is A Game of Chess, and it came after working with block printing and photography, which is right below it, and I really liked the way it, the form contrasted against the pitch blackness of the background. So I really went off of that, and one of the artists who was best known for that was Caravaggio, and I really looked into that, and especially with his use of emotion and shading to get a dramatic scene, which the simplest thing, such as a game of chess, can be emphasized.
Oh, all right. So did you run into any problems, or what were your concerns in making this piece?
Well, the main concern was working with acrylic paint, which is, well, this was actually my first self-portrait at this scale, and using this medium, I had to work fast, as quickly as possible, but I was still able to achieve the facial features, which are really important.
What did you think about regarding your blending? Did you learn a lot with your blending on this piece? Because this is the first time you've kind of done this kind of stuff, isn't it?
Yes, I did learn a lot about blending, especially working with, because this piece, there's a light source coming in from the top right angle, so I was forced to apply these shadows, me popping out of the darkness, and especially working with the shading, because of the mustache hairs between the shading of just me against the darkness, the shadow, and many different variations of the shades.
Now, you worked really hard at trying to get those shadows in the right spot. What did you do to set that up? How did you learn, or not even learn, but what did you do to make sure that they went in the right spot? What was your planning on this piece?
First of all, I had to actually put myself into a dark space and study how, like, the angle of the light sources would play onto this.
Did you photograph yourself or anything like that?
At first, I photographed myself. Then I tried to see how I wanted to be realistic in that the shading would work like this. So I took a picture of myself, but then I also actually experimented in different light sources, and then worked off of that.
Okay. Did you, besides just color, was there any other thing that Caravaggio influenced with this piece besides just the darkness? Is there anything else that he influenced you on?
Maybe his storytelling. Many people in his era, during the Baroque period, his art was the main source of teaching people about Christianity. So in this way, I'm also telling the story of just me playing a game of chess.
Okay. So you're playing off of the two ideas of story.
Yes.
On this piece. All right. Looking.
I would also, bigger influence would be in Caravaggio's piece, David with the Head of Goliath, where it was actually a self-portrait of him inside the piece. As David holds Goliath's head in his left hand, I also hold a chess piece, and that chess piece represents me because it's a knight, and the way in a game of chess works is that whenever a knight moves, the shape it creates would be the shape of the letter L, which stands for my name. Again, putting myself into the hand.
Very nice. Excellent. Did you run into any major problems with the piece, or are you pretty happy with the success of it?
I'm pretty happy with the success of it, mostly except for trying to work with the acrylic paint, most of all, because it really couldn't, it would dry too fast, and it was really hard, especially in the hand part, trying to get the fingers all to be exactly like the same shades.
Uh-huh. Did you work in any other mediums other than acrylic that you thought was better at times for the blending other than acrylic? Did you work in any oils or anything?
On this particular piece, no, but on other pieces, I really worked with. I mainly worked with oils for the rest of the pieces.
Okay. What is that piece behind you made out of?
This is all oil paint. This is entirely oil paint. This was a completely different technique I used. As what I seen before, I just used the brush, but in this piece I used a spatula, which didn't allow for as smooth as blending as this piece, but allowed me to create this texture and have. It allowed me to like really overlap my colors differently than I would with this.
Yeah. How did you, I mean, that was a major change for you going from blending into trying to work with a spatula. And that had to be very different for you. Can you tell me about what that was like going into that with the spatula for the first time? How did you feel getting into that piece?
Well, my game plan was to focus around the edges first, then work my way inwards.
Mm-hmm.
So as I would progress, I would sort of experiment around the piece, and I would try to gain more skills working towards the center, which is where the two people are, and this would allow me to have more experience working with this style.
Do you think there are pieces of this composition that you would go back into and you could continue with, or pieces you're very proud of, or how are your feelings now looking back at the work?
Well, the main thing is I would, personally, I would go back to this piece and start over by,
Really?
I would like to have a bigger impact with this piece by increasing the size of these two men, making them life size, actually, and that would have a greater impact.
Mm-hmm.
So, and with the same technique, I could probably just go over it with more oil paint and create more layers on top of this. And
You've got some big works here, and do you find it less intimidating now to work large, or do you just enjoy working large because you're like, I want to make this big again? Do you?
well, it depends. I really start off with the canvas first, then I have no idea what to go off of that.
Okay.
That really came up in this piece right here, the window piece.
Okay.
It came out of an old discarded tabletop frame, and I really like the shape of it, an octagon shape.
Mm-hmm.
So then I decided to make it into a canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was looking into things that it might actually be,
Mm-hmm.
and I found that many houses have octagon-shaped attic windows. So that really interested me into making a window.
Okay. Can you tell me what is this all about? What's happening here?
Okay, well, just outside the window is that's the Amazon rainforest. We have the Amazon River cutting across diagonally,
Mm-hmm.
and so I decided to place that on the outside. And if you didn't notice, there's actually a painting within, like just right outside of, right on the inside
Mm-hmm.
the window. Mainly working off of the idea that of Rene Magritte
Okay.
and his piece, The Human Condition.
Okay.
And it was two pieces that he had named The Human Condition. They both featured a painting within the painting, blocking in front of a window or a door, and it I blended into what the background might be. And I was
Okay.
working with that idea of, is this what this painting shows? Is it really what's behind it, outside the window?
So you got like a painting right in here is what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay.
So would this painting actually be representing what's really behind it, or would it just be hiding a bigger issue such as deforestation, which is going on the right?
Okay.
And then the whole structure of the window refrains the viewer from actually getting involved.
Okay.
It's a solid object. It contrasts against the natural curves of the river.
All right. Cool. You spent a long time on this piece. What were the struggles you had with making this piece?
One of the struggles was working. Well, my first plan was I made the frame, the window, the cross in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
but then I decided to work in sections of it.
Mm-hmm.
Then one of the problems I had was getting the same consistency of trees and foliage
Mm-hmm.
on each one, and if you look closely, you can see that it's not really consistent across.
How would you resolve that now, looking back?
Probably would have spent more time into making more of the same color oil paint,
Mm-hmm.
and so I wouldn't run out and have to remake the same hue,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would apply it the same way.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to take a jump here for a second from this piece. And I'm looking at some pieces you made junior year over here. Can you tell me what's going on? This is pretty different from everything else on the wall. Tell me about your choices of why you did what you did and what this is all about.
This is the child's journey, and for the piece at the top, I decided to make a self-portrait in the style of an artist who I actually went out and did a gallery visit and saw his work. His name is Dennis Nichvatal, and what he would do, he had a portrait of a person,
Mm-hmm.
and then he would have individual masks uniform across the whole canvas, and he would paint on top of those masks
Mm-hmm.
the portrait. So I decided to take the same idea and use a childhood toy, which would be little Lego people,
Mm-hmm.
and I would draw my self-portrait over it, and paint my self-portrait over it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was my first time working with oil paints, because I tried working with acrylic paint on these plastic toys, but it just didn't have the same effect as the oil paints did on sticking towards the plastic.
Also, the oil paint stuck better than the acrylics
Yes.
did on these pieces. Can you, I mean, so your whole face is made out of Legos, you've got Legos in the background, you've got these scenes happening here. Can you tell me what you're trying to say with each one of these pieces? What's your meanings?
For the top one, I just wanted to say that this is me, and the people are the little figures that are behind the paint. Those are the people that have made the person I am today.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle piece, it's my journey. It's my how me and my family got to be in the city. And for this one, I worked with more Legos, trying to build the structures of the city, the main features, the museum, the city skyline, and the domes, and then the baseball park.
Okay.
And also traveling to Milwaukee, how it was different from back home, and how the fedora, which how he's dressed, represents how, you know, the clothes on our backs that we had while we came here.
Where did you come from?
Okay, we lived on the road for a bit. When we immigrated from Mexico, we went to California for a year, and then we came back. We came to Milwaukee,
Mm-hmm.
and but this is what happened when I was 3 years old, so I have no memory of it.
Okay.
So I just assumed for a large portion of my childhood that I was here until I was like told I was not.
Okay.
And
What's going on at the bottom piece down here?
I wanted to give a different scene, which would be the opposite. Desaturated the colors from the bricks and the above painting to black and white, and changed the color of the sky from daytime to nighttime, and showed a little city and how my imagination is a big part of who I am, and me seeing myself as like a little superhero.
Excellent. Did, you played a lot with metaphor and meanings in these pieces. Did this help you come up with how to express yourself in other pieces later on?
Yes, I actually worked with the same medium, which is shown to the right of it. This was more recently in my senior year, and I wanted to take on a topic that of death. Many children don't know that they're going to die. So I wanted to play around with that, see if they would notice that he's dying.
Did this idea affect you a lot as a kid? Like the idea that realization that you are mortal?
Yeah, it was just living day by day. I didn't think of that at all until I started becoming older and more people started dying, and which came up back here with the people who made me up, who I am today. One of them is a little skeleton that represents a few people that passed away.
Okay.
And so that went into this. I basically found the image of the dying Gaul and decided to work with the limitations, as I did before, of working with these squared plastic cubes. And so I tried my best to create the human form in this position of vulnerability and dying. So, but I also didn't choose a specific color scheme because when you're a child, you just want to play. You don't think about color scheme at all.
Now, I'm visually seeing a connection between what's happening here. What brought you to the painting down below?
The painting down below, it's of a marble, another childhood toy, because Legos were really expensive growing up. So it was like my father introduced me to marbles, but I didn't have anything else. And I was looking into this, and it came up right after working with photorealism, and I decided to make something more, to try and make something photorealistic, but out of little pixels, as seen in like early video games, and to see how, if you step away, does it really resemble a photograph. And I tried to work with trying to get the shape of real marble.
How successful do you think you are with putting that together? I know you were saying you're stepping further away, and I've done that myself looking at this piece, stepping further away, coming up closer. How did you achieve that? How did you get to that? I mean, you did a lot of work, you said, but what specifically did you have to do?
Well, first I started off with a grid. Then I took a large circular object and drew a circle around it. And I started off by coloring squares off that got closer and closer to becoming the circular object, and that really helped. And I tried. I had a few attempts at this, trying to get as round as possible, and this was as close as I can get.
Okay. Did you research anybody for this, or was this a pure experimentation?
Part of it was experimentation, but I worked off of the same artist I used for my photorealism pieces.
Let's talk about your photorealism then, because I know these brought you into that. Can you talk about your process for this?
These pieces are the pieces that I use the most mediums on.
Okay.
The top set of 4 was my first attempt at photorealism, and how I started off was I worked off of a photo, just like the photorealist did, and I drew out the piece. This top left one was my first attempt, and I worked with applying different mediums such as layering multiple layers of gesso, and then silicone gawk, which built up a texture better than actual gesso.
How did you like working with that silicone caulk?
Well, it got pretty hard to handle with, especially trying to apply it to smaller crevices, but then I
Mhm.
worked towards that. Only the only place I used it would be where the image would be closer to you.
Mhm.
So farther off into the darkness,
Mhm.
you wouldn't get texture at all. It'd just be flat. And for that one, I used only oil.
Okay. How did the oil attach itself to that silicone? Were you happy with how it went onto that silicone?
I was pretty happy because I waited till it was dry, and then the silicone caulk had the similar consistency of I'd say like a little like normal gesso, except it would be more textured because of the way I applied it
Mm-hmm.
using a spatula such as in this.
Oh, okay. Did you do this piece after you finished this one over here?
No, this one actually came before.
Before it?
Yes.
Okay, so did you transfer any ideas from here to here, do you think?
Yes, especially not specifically particularly around because I used more solid color,
Mm-hmm.
but especially down the main little features
Uh-huh.
of this piece, such as the joints and the stomach right here,
Okay,
and then the hands holding the chair.
all right. Now, coming back to these guys, you made these junior year and you did this one senior year. Are you happy with your progression? Can you tell us what it took to get into this one?
My second attempt came up because I wanted to challenge myself, see if I can actually do it, have similar results. So I used the same medium, and I worked off the photograph again, but this time it's a bit more abstract.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell that there's flowers in the scene and leaves and other features, but what really separates this one and the top left one would be the darkness behind them.
What do you think that darkness did?
Created a background so I can layer other the leaves on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
While this one, it was just a green leaf on top of another green leaf on top of another green leaf. It was really difficult to try and get for them to contrast against each other
Mm-hmm.
without it looking flat.
So you really feel that black background ended up giving it a lot more depth too, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because this one, it was just contrasting against the white sky,
Mm-hmm.
so that really didn't help.
I know you did some still lifes too on the side from time to time. Did that start to help figure out placement and figure out dimension and build some of your skill?
Yes, especially when layering different images on top of each other,
Uh-huh.
to make it actually seem like it's possible that it could be real.
Mm-hmm.
And working with still lifes really helped me out, especially working to this piece right here at the bottom right, where for this piece I had to draw fish,
Mm-hmm.
and fish aren't the easiest subject matter to work with.
Did you draw them from life?
Yes, I drew them from still life to get them in their natural state.
Mm-hmm.
And for this piece, I wanted to incorporate another Western artist, so I decided to do Claude Monet. And this came up after a visit to the Chicago Art Museum, in which they had quite a large collection of pieces by Claude Monet,
Mhm.
specifically his lily pond pieces,
Mm-hmm.
which he made over 200 of. So I'm not really discouraged if I didn't get similar results, because he worked a lot with like the same subject.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it comes layering colors comes up again here, especially working with the water lilies on top of the water.
What kind of like reflections did you have to do upon this piece to get it? Like how many times do you have to refine it and rework it?
Well, I had to, since I was working with oil paint, it was a bit easier because as I was working with trying to make water lilies, I would if something didn't come out right and I didn't like, I would just have to scrape it off and then start again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what like took the most time out of this, was making sure that the lilies were.
Now, was this a still life as well? Did you go somewhere? Did you work off a photograph? Were these created differently?
This was created differently, really. This was my last piece, and it was really a way to sum up all the skills that I gained.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked off of this, but a man by the name of Bob Ross,
Okay.
whose career was being a painter on TV, and in order to prove to myself that I was good, I tried to do what he did. In his show, it takes him 30 minutes to paint a landscape, so I tried to test myself on trying to make a landscape in 30 minutes.
How'd you feel about that?
It took me 3 times as long. I didn't stop. I kept going, even though I knew it was taking too long.
Do you think this is something that you would, in a way, over the course of your life, try to continue with? Like, I'm going to give myself so much time, and I'm going to make these pieces. Do you think that's a good exercise for yourself?
Yes, that would, because it really helps hone your skills. You rely back on what you've learned in the past and try to apply those same techniques.
Okay.
And I really worked off the top of my head on this one too. So I tried to get a mountain landscape.
So just like Bob Ross, it's kind of an imaginary piece too,
Yes.
wasn't it?
Yes, and I used the same techniques for making the clouds as I did in this piece. I came up with how to use the mountains. Before I spent a whole weekend watching nothing but Bob Ross.
Uh-huh.
I noticed that he used the same technique for making the mountains that I did with applying oil paint on this one with a spatula.
Okay.
Just applying paint by scraping across the canvas, trying to get the form of the mountain.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel that there's some connections here, but it's a little bit different. What did you find you had to do differently?
Creating a background, middle ground, and foreground.
Mm-hmm.
I had trouble trying to connect the foreground to the middle ground, maybe because I didn't really understand how he would work so fast that I really didn't notice how he would be able to make these separations between the foreground and the middle ground.
Mm-hmm. So was this your only Bob Ross piece you've done so far?
Yes, this is the first one.
Okay. So maybe to do that more and more might end up being a really good idea too.
Yeah, that'd be a good exercise too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, before our time is up, I would like to take a look at these last few pieces here that have a sculptural quality to it. Can you tell us about these guys right here? What's going on?
Well, this was my first sculptural piece, making tiles.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I did this was I made a mold and put clay into the mold and got more multiples of it. And so, but for this one, I went back to my ancestral roots and looked into the Mayan culture, Mayan Aztec culture, and took one of their mythological creatures and thought of a way to express how ancient this culture is. So I looked into M.C. Escher, who was known for his tessellations and his repetition of that image, an image. So what I did was I had to find some way to, his were prints, so I had to find a way to make what was on paper into a sculpture.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to spend some time working with the original clay tile, making sure it was symmetrical on all 3 edges, so it would be able to create this wreath.
Did you run into any problems making these clay molds?
Yes. It was really difficult to be able to have all of them in the circular motion, all 6
Mhm.
fit perfectly together. So I decided to, meantime, make 6 of them
Mm-hmm.
and just work my way around, fixing each crevice and trying to make sure they would fit.
Okay, so you made the mold, but you had to manipulate it a little bit
Yes.
when you got done with that. What's the meaning of the aquarium that it's in here?
I need to find a place to put this in, so I decided to put in an aquarium because it's the Aztec capital is located on a beach, so I wanted to get that aspect of it being lost in sand.
Mm-hmm.
But then I thought about how it would be cool to, it would be a good idea to put this in an aquarium to mean how close it is to putting it in your home and it being closer to your heritage and being something that's around with you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's move on to your piece down below, your found object piece.
This piece came out had this old bike that I never used because I kind of grew out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked into what can I do with this piece, with these bike pieces, and I remembered that Pablo Picasso worked with a bicycle seat and the handlebars,
Mm-hmm.
and he created a bull's head,
Mm-hmm.
kind of to have some comedic relief in his time, because
Mhm.
during that time they were going through the German occupation of Paris.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to play off of that, also incorporating his nationality, his culture of being from Spain, and the tradition of bullfighting, which you see as the bow made out of bicycle pieces
Mm-hmm.
is getting impaled by spears, matador spears, and
Do you find this piece to be a success? You happy with it?
I'm pretty happy with it. I would like to incorporate more aspects of Picasso's cubism. Not the spears; it's really symmetrical right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I would like to work with disproportioning it more.
Okay. Well, Luis, before we wrap up this interview here, one question I've been asking of all the students is, if all of these works were to catch on fire, the building, and you could only save one of these works, which would it be and why?
I would say I wouldn't take either of these because I was taught that I shouldn't get too attached to my pieces, because then I'll always be referencing that, oh, my next piece isn't as good as this piece I made before.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have so much pride put into this piece that I saved that I wouldn't care as much as the pieces I'm making in the present. So it would be really hard to decide which one to take.
So leave them all.
Yeah.
Let them burn.
It'll be a good learning experience.
All right. All right, Luis, is there any last things you'd like to say before we conclude the interview?
Well, no, not really.
All right. Well, fantastic. Thank you very much.